Picture this, you've known this forest since childhood. Every path, every fallen trunk, the stream that runs west, always home. Today, you don't know it at all. It started harmlessly. You stepped off the path to pick mushrooms, just a few steps, and then a few more. And when you turn around, the path isn't where it should be. Never mind, you think, I'll just walk straight ahead. Straight ahead always gets you somewhere. But there's that fallen birch with the split trunk. You've seen it before, earlier, half an hour ago. You've walked in a circle. You, who knows this forest like the back of your hand, have walked a circle. You stop, and now you notice how quiet it is. No bird, no wind, just your own breath. And then, far back between the trunks, a laugh. Deep, booming, far too big. It echoes from everywhere and nowhere. Then a clap of hands. Then your mother calling your name from a direction where no mother could possibly be. The old folk would have known what to do now. Take off your jacket, they've said. Turn it inside out. Swap your shoes left for right. Because in this forest, everything is reversed. And only the one who turns himself inside out finds the way back. But you just stand there. And between the trees where the laugh came from, something is moving that is as tall as the trees themselves. He's found you. Or rather, he never let you out of his sight.
Tick, tick, down the hall. Great tales, call it by name. Great tales, shadows remain. Tick, 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 time keeps its stare. Great tales, something is there.
Hello and welcome back to Great Tales. I'm Chris and I'm glad to have you here. This is part 3 of our little series on the real myth behind the monsters of The Witcher. And it may be the part where I surprise you the most, because so far we've been frightened twice, by Lady Midday in the field and by the Striga in the crypt. And they were, as you may have noticed, women. Female figures into which a society poured its fears of death, of disease, of the wrong kind of woman. Today, that changes, because today, for the first time, we are dealing with a male being. And not only that, it's also the first being in our series that may not be a monster at all. We're going into the forest, to the Leshy. In the Witcher games, you know him as the Leshen, that towering, root-woven figure with a deer skull for a face, commanding crows and wolves. And I promise you, most of what you think you know about this creature is invented. But not by me, by a game studio in Warsaw. What the Leshy really was is a completely different, far older and far wiser story. Let's begin, part 3 of 4. Don't lose your way. The face that never was. Let's start with the image you all have in your heads. The Leshen from The Witcher 3, released in 2015, a towering forest terror, its body of wood, moss and bark. Its head a pale deer or elk skull crowned with sweeping antlers. It summons flocks of ravens, sets wolf packs loose, tears roots up out of the ground. A nightmare out of the primeval wood, one of the most iconic creatures in the whole game. And now comes the uncomfortable truth, and I find it fascinating. That face, the deer skull, the antlers, has almost nothing to do with the real Slavic legend behind all this. This isn't just my private opinion. Since 2025, there is a peer-reviewed academic article with the fitting title The Invention of Leshy, published in the journal Games and Culture by the Polish researchers Tomasz Majkowski, Magdalena Kozyra and Aleksandra Prokopek. And their core argument is exactly that. The Leshen, as we know, it is a modern creation. And as scholars put it, invented tradition. Andrzej Sapkowski himself, the creator of The Witcher, only mentions the creature in his books in passing, almost offhandedly, with its foreign-sounding name. He never describes it in detail. So, when CD Projekt Red designed the game, the designers had an almost blank page, and they filled it. Less from old legend, more from a modern Polish bestiarity of 2012 and from global pop culture. The deer skull? Honestly, it resembles the Wendigo of the Algonquin people in North America far more than anything Slavic. Horns and antlers were the great exception among Slavic spirits. And where they did appear, they were a mark of Christian demonization. But we'll come to that. This invented face has, by the way, come so far that there now stands a monument of the Leshen in Bolkov, Poland, and millions of people worldwide take this deer skull to be the face of Slavic mythology. A monster that 10 years ago didn't even exist in this form. That, if you like, is our guiding question in its purest form. Who tells the story and whose version wins? So let's set the game aside and dig up who was really waiting in the forest. The master and the shepherd of the forest. The real Leshy, from the ancient Slavic word les, which simply means forest, is no faceless slaughterer. He is the master of the house of the forest. In Russian, he was reverently called the Kozyan, the master, or fondly and cautiously, the forest grandfather. Everything that lives beneath the trees belongs to him. Every tree, every bird, every animal. And above all, he's a shepherd. Picture this, the wild animals of the forest are his flock. He drives the hares and squirrels from one wood to another. He leads the wolf packs, often appearing himself as a great white wolf, the pack leader. And my favorite image in this whole myth, when whole droves of animals suddenly migrate out of a region, then the people believed a Leshy has lost his animals at a card game to another Leshy. Nature is a poker game between forest spirits. Great! Isn't that just a wonderful way to explain the world? His appearance is changeable. Sometimes an old man with a beard of lichen and bark-like skin, sometimes an animal, sometimes a gust of wind. But the most astonishing thing is his size. In his own forest, the legend says, the Leshy is as tall as the tallest trees. But step out of the forest onto an open field, and in that same moment, he shrinks to the height of the grass. He is the forest. He cannot be greater than what belongs to him. And you can recognize him if you look closely by a host of small wrongnesses. The folklore record noted them precisely. He's missing his eyebrows, his eyelashes, often his right ear. He casts no shadow. His blood, they say, is blue. He wears his clothing fastened the wrong way, left over right, and his shoes are on the wrong feet. Remember this wrongness. It's about to save your life. Leading astray and the science behind it. Because this is one of the most famous, the best documented trait of the Leshy. He leads astray. He sends people wandering. He makes them walk in circles in their own familiar forests until they're utterly lost, exactly as in our intro. How does he do it? With voices. He mimics the mother, the husband, a crying child, luring you deeper and deeper in. He loves a booming echo that seems to come from everywhere. He claps his hands, he whistles, and some legends say he tickles his victims to death. How do you protect yourself? Remember the wrongness. That's exactly where salvation lies. Because in Leshy's world, everything is mirror reversed. You have to reverse yourself. Turn your clothes inside out. Swap your shoes left for right. Some stripped completely and put everything on backwards. With that, the belief went, you break the spell and find your way back. And now comes the moment where I show you why these old legends are so much wiser than you think. Because walking in circles is not an invention. It is a scientifically proven fact. In 2009, a team led by the researcher Jan Souman at the Max Planck Institute for Biological Cybernetics in Tübingen published a study in the respected journal Current Biology. The title, Walking Straight into Circles. The researchers sent volunteers with GPS trackers into the Bienenwald forest in southwest Germany and into the Tunisian Sahara, and they simply had to walk straight ahead. The result is astonishing. As long as people could see the sun or the moon, they roughly held the direction. But the moment the sky was overcast, the moment there was no fixed reference point left, no tower, no mountain, no sun, they walked in circles, again and again. And the eerie part? They didn't notice. They were convinced they went straight ahead and crossed their own path over and over. Souman put it plainly. Without a fixed reference, a human being cannot hold a straight line. Our brain accumulates tiny errors in its sense of straight ahead. and those add up into a circle. A dense forest under an overcast sky is therefore exactly the trap that Leshy sets. And it gets eerier still. A cognitive scientist commenting on the study noted that most hikers found dead lie less than a mile from the spot where they got lost. They walk in circles until their strength gives out, almost within sight of rescue. For the old Slavs, there was only one explanation. The master of the forest had taken them. Quickly before we go deeper into the woods, if you're enjoying this journey, drop a like and a subscribe. It's the fixed reference point that keeps this channel from walking in circles. And you are like my pact in the forest, so to speak. You keep this channel alive, and for that I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Speaking of pacts, let's talk about how you actually did business with a forest spirit like this. How to bargain with the forest. Because this is perhaps the most important difference between the real Leshy and any game monster. You didn't fight the Leshy, you bargained with it. Shepherds and hunters struck genuine pacts with him. A hunter who wanted game to run before his guns, a shepherd who wanted his flock protected from wolves. They entered into a contract with the master of the forest. And they brought offerings, bread and salt, often mixed with their own hair, plus blini, eggs, the first catch, the first animal killed, laid down on a tree stump at the forest's edge. The folklorist Sergei Maximov recorded this in 1903 in his great work on the unclean forces. A successful day's hunting was understood as a gift from the Leshy, and the first piece of game you gave back to him. In return, the Leshy demanded one thing: respect and measure. Don't take more than you need. Don't hunt on the forbidden days. Don't be loud. Don't be greedy. And keep the pact secret. Whoever broke it, who took too much, who boasted, who defiled the forest, for them the forest closed. The path led nowhere, the game vanished at the moment of the shot, and sometimes the greedy one never came home at all. Do you hear what's really being told here? At its core, it is an ecological lesson. 1,000 years before we invented the word sustainability. The Leshy punishes greed. He rewards restraint. He is the spirit who says, the forest doesn't belong to you. You are a guest here. Behave. How the guardian became a devil. But if the Leshy was originally an ambivalent guardian, neither good nor evil, simply wild, then where does the monster come from? Where do the horns, the hooves, the demonic terror come from? The answer is from Christianity. As the new religion settled over the Slavic lands, it had no place for a forest spirit you signed contracts with or offered bread to. Such beings were reinterpreted into nechistial sila, the unclean force. The Leshy was given what the church gave the devil: horns, hooves, black fur, a goat's body. The guardian became a demon. The pact with him became a pact with the devil, and selling of one's own soul. And his old duties were taken over by the saints. St. Nicholas was invoked for protection against wolves. St. George became the patron of the hunters. There's a beautiful legend from the Russian region of Olonets that shows how people reconciled their old faith with the new. It tells, when the archangel Michael cast the rebel angels out of heaven, they fell to the earth. And whoever fell into the forest became a Leshy. Whoever fell into the water became a Vodyanoi, the waterman. Whoever fell onto a house became a household spirit. The old spirits summarily declared to be fallen angels, and so the Leshy lived on, disguised, tolerant but demonized. And it is precisely this demonized Leshy, the horned devil of the forest, who is the ancestor of that monster which confronts us centuries later in this Witcher game with its deer skull. The game, without knowing it, tells not the old guardian, but what the church made of him. The forest as the edge of the world. Let's stay sober for a moment and ask, why a master of the forest at all? Why did almost every culture dream up such a figure? Because for people in the past, the forest was both the foundation of life and a deadly danger. Everything came out of the forest: timber, game, honey, firewood, pasture for the livestock, and everything lurked in the woods: wolves, bears, bandits, cold, getting lost, the lonely death. The forest was the boundary of the civilized world. Beyond the village fence, order ended and the other began. And the Leshy is the personification of exactly that boundary. He is the answer to a real experience. Sometimes someone vanished into the forest and never came back. Sometimes the game migrated away inexplicably and the hunters returned empty-handed. Sometimes you heard sounds among the trees that no animals make. Wind sweeping through gaps and hollows can produce tones so low you don't hear them, but only feel them, as a creeping unease, as the sense of being watched. Today we call that infrasound, but back then they called it the Leshy is near. The Leshy gave the inexplicable a name, a face, a law, and above all he gave people a set of instructions. Respect the forest and it spares you. That's not stupidity. That's the distilled survival experience of 1,000 generations who lived at the edge of the wild. The horned lore everywhere. And the loveliest part is, the Slavs were not alone in this. This figure, the male lord of the forest, appears all over the world, wherever people lived at the edge of the great woods. The ancient Greeks had Pan, the goat-legged shepherd god, whose sudden terror is with us to this day as panic. The Romans had Silvanus, literally the woodland one, protector of forests and herds, to whom country folk brought offerings before they entered his realm. Almost word for word the pact with the Leshy. The Middle Ages knew the wild man, the hairy man of the woods you find on coats of arms and churches. And in the forests of North America, the Algonquin peoples told of the Wendigo, the gaunt figure of terror who stands for greed and the taboo against greed. Remember, that same greed is what the Leshy punishes you for. It's as if humanity everywhere had the same experience and arrived at the same answer. The forest has a lord. He's male and he's mighty. And you do well not to cross him. And here the circle closes back to our series. Because it's no accident that this lord of the forest is a man. Think back. Lady Midday, the Striga, and soon the Bruxa, they are all women. In them lives the fear of the female body, of childbirth, of death in the house and the field close by. The Leshy, by contrast, is the fear of the outside, of the wilderness beyond the fence. The old stories divided up the world. Inside, in the familiar, lurk the female terrors, and outside in the wild, the male one reigns. A whole map of human fear divided up by gender. Who tells the forest? And with that, we arrive at our guiding question. Who tells the story of the Leshy and why? It's a story that has transformed itself over 1,000 years. And at each transformation, you can tell who held the power. The hunters and shepherds told the Leshy as a partner. A mighty, capricious, but negotiable master you had to get along with in order to survive. The church then told him as a devil, a horned demon you had to cross yourself against. And a game studio in 21st century Warsaw finally told him as a monster, a sublime, terrible force of nature with a deer skull, against which a witcher draws his sword. 3 storytellers, 3 forests, the same spirit. And the fascinating thing is, each of these versions reveals more about the tellers than about the creature. The hunter, who has to survive, invents a spirit you can bargain with. The church, which wants power, invents an enemy only it can protect you from. And we, modern people who hardly have to fear the forest anymore, we invent a Leshen that is frightening again, because the only place we still want to feel the old fear of the wild is in a game. We've brought back the very monster our ancestors so desperately needed to tame. Closing thoughts. Perhaps that's the real lesson of the Leshy. Over the centuries, we've turned him from guardian to devil to monster. We've put horns on him, a deer skull, a set of antlers. We've taken a spirit who taught us to respect the forest and made him into a thing we only want to cut down. And it seems to me that says more about us than about him. Our ancestors stood at the edge of a forest that was bigger and older and mightier than they were, and they had the wisdom to give it a lord to bow to. We've made the forest small, cleared it, measured it, mastered it. And just know, when we hardly need to fear it anymore, we summon its boogeyman back into our screens. As if we secretly sense that we've lost something. that it was wiser to have a lord of the forest before whom you kept your measure than to have none at all. The Leshy never needed a face. No antlers, no skull. He was the forest itself, its silence, its voices, its way of letting you walk in circles until you grasp how small you are. Perhaps that is the true face behind the monster. No face, just trees, as far as the eye can see, and the feeling that you're watched. Next time, for the last time, we leave the Slavic lands behind. We travel south to the end of our series, to Portugal and Spain. There a figure awaits, half witch, half vampire, who turns into a bird by night and goes down into the water. The Bruxa. With her, we return to the female terrors and close the circle we began with Lady Midday. Until then, if you ever feel in the forest that you're working in circles, stop, turn your jacket inside out, and be polite. You never know whose forest this is. Until then, sleep well. Your friend, Chris.